Mic check, 1, 2, this ain't a pull track or crew, this warehouse 15, but legends speak true. 3 rings on my fingers, gold medals gleam, but under this armor, life ain't always what it seemed. Yeah, we trained hard, pushed limits, reached the peak, but the pressure cooker boiled man so weeks I couldn't speak. Sponsorships and smiles, hiding the inner fight.
Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you may be. I know we have people across the world listening to us. This is the Warehouse 15, where we keep it real. And if your feelings get hurt, well, sorry, but not sorry, as they say.
No,
Well,
sorry.
good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, and good afternoon, depending where you are. Mr. TJ, how you doing?
I'm good. Just hanging out right now, getting ready for this conversation. This weekend's a little weird for me though. I watched you guys remember the original Beetlejuice? Like the old movie
Yeah.
Beetlejuice?
The best
They made
one.
they made a number 2 and I suffered through it and I'm really mad about it. So that's my update from the weekend.
Yeah,
Not
then
so good for me.
Mr. Moreno, how you doing, Coach?
You know what? Let's see. I'm doing great. But first of all, on the Beetlejuice, I didn't watch it because of that. Everyone's,
Yeah.
can't wait to see it. I'm just like, it's been, I don't know how many years. You can't. I said, no, I'm not even going to watch. I watched Gladiator. And,
I want to watch that. I haven't watched that yet.
and you know what? It wasn't bad. But, the first one was so iconic. It's just hard to replicate that. So, yeah, for me, that wasn't that good. But, I'm doing good. I just thought of a funny story because my daughter's been sick all week. She went to school. They sent her home. She was okay. A day later, she went back bad. And I was just looking at her. She looked so helpless and so quiet and so sick and laying there like my little baby. And I don't know why. Just thinking, Herb, do you know what my daughter's first words were?
I know.
Where's Coach Perez?
Ready for this? You ready for
Oh.
this? She looked at me. She was like, TJ.
Oh, really?
She said, TJ, we were like, what? We actually recorded it. It was so funny because when she was a baby, she cried every time she saw anybody. And I don't know, she from being at the school, and I'm always like, TJ this, TJ that. All of a sudden, she's like, TJ. It's kind of a running joke in our family.
It sounds
at
like
me
there
like
might
you
have been
were.
some visits. There might have been some visits you didn't know about.
Well, she looks just like me, so I don't know.
I'm not saying before. I'm just saying after.
Oh,
But, what's going on? You look like you got a crown on. You got a crown on behind. What is 1, 2? There's a few up there.
There's a few missing a couple, but it's an old picture. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh! Well,
Little
I'm
flex.
looking, and then what? I see a medal over there, and I'm gonna go. I got 3 of those. I think the 3 of those things. But when we're talking about the old school, the old movie, the Gladiator, the Beetlejuice, I'm gonna just say that I agree. I agree. Also in Taekwondo, the old medals, the guys who won medals, and 3 of them are on the podcast today. So I'm gonna say it out loud. But then again. There really is only old medals. The new ones aren't.
Can I jump in real fast? Actually, I had a little bit of I don't even say I had a little bit of a talk with somebody on social media, and again, I know, Hyung, I know we argue not argue, we debate back and forth about old school, new school, and stuff like that. But it was just, this individual was talking about how the old or the new school, they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't fight, and I was just like, you know what? We were going back and forth about our points. But one of my thing was, because he kept on referencing that the old school guys, like, were tough guys. And there were old school guys that were tough guys that could fight in and out. I said, but listen, I was on many national teams, and you were on 2, where some of these dudes, they were great in the ring, but they couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. So let's not have this thing like everybody around us were badass tough dudes. And I'm not saying these guys nowadays are, but you know what I'm saying? I come on, we've been on a lot of trips where people, in certain situations would run the other way. I'm just saying.
We have been on many teams, and I have been on many teams where there are a lot of sissies. I don't know if they can use that wording. Maybe I'll get canceled. But yes, we had a lot of old school teams and teams before I was on them, actually, that had a lot of sissies on them that couldn't fight and wouldn't fight.
No, but they were good at the sport.
They were good at they were good at the sport. They looked at the sport. They referred to the sport as a game. They were players.
Correct.
We referred to the sport. It was a fight, and we were fighters.
I remember one of your good friends couldn't stand. Or actually, it was I think it was Greg Baker. Greg Baker was an old fire. He's a rough guy, whatever. But I remember somebody would said, "Yeah, we're a Taekwondo player, and we play the game." And he's like, what are you talking about?" I mean, there were some people that looked at it as a game and a sport. Some people looked at it as a fight and a sport. And I think I would be willing to bet there's some people in this day and age. I mean, that look at it for sure as a sport, but there's some of them that can ball their fists up and they can let it go if they have to. I believe not all of them, but
I
not
think
the
you
overbearing.
I think you guys have listen, you guys are closer to the athletes than I am, and you've got some great athletes, and I'm sure that some of them can actually fight. It's not evidenced by the Olympic Games by any means, but I'm sure that, they can hurt things more than other people's feelings, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that that's the case because I never like to diminish the athlete. I think it's the responsibility falls on the organization and what the expectations are, which is what we talked about last week. And I think we're going to kind of try to continue on this week, which is where are we? What are we doing? And I know that, Coach, you had something you wanted to say about that. And before we move on to the next topic.
Me first. Go ahead, TJ. You can go. You want to talk about something?
We're just going back for the recap for last week.
A little bit,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, we can do that. And we can also, I know we want to talk about solutions. I'm not the kind of guy that, if there's a broken window, I don't want to talk about who broke the window. I want to talk about what we can do to fix the window. So it doesn't matter. You can point out a problem, but do you have a solution? So we're going to get to solutions this week. But before we get there, let's recap and make sure we got everything where it needed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I know. So I kind of ended on, or asked Coach Moreno, just kind of like, was this what you envisioned when we talk about a national team program or the setup and all that stuff like that? Honestly, for me, I think the one thing that stands out the most for me is just I think the level that we get involved, the level that the national team get involved with the juniors. Like I think I was very privileged when I was a junior. I was around the big dog coaches. I was around the guys that been there before, done that before, and like those are the ones that were guiding me through the process that would, I would say, ultimately help me later on at the higher levels. And I'm not saying no coaches that go are good. I just think I mean, look, you have two high level coaches, that are with you as a junior and a cadet, or not cadets then, but as a junior, kind of like showing you how things are, have your support and your development at the competitions and everything. So I mean, it's just a little bit of a different take on where we are now, and then kind of just selecting teams to go with the kids to the event, coming back, and then restarting again the next year.
I mean, listen, I'll add to that, like in a sense. First of all, Young, I'm not. Of course, you're correct. If you're going to um, throw some shade at people or things, sometimes you might want to try to, help fix it. But I'm going to tell you something. To be honest with you, I don't think it's my job to fix it. If you want to hire me, if you want to bring me, not hire me, you want to bring me to the table, I'm more than willing to give some introspect on it and maybe find some solutions. But that being said, I mean, kind of what TJ mentioned. You know, I've heard in the past that some of your best coaches should be at the bottom level. Some of your best coaches should be watching some of these young kids because, generally speaking, they could be the best teachers. I'm not saying all the time, but at least be aware, at least be understanding, at least know people's names, at least know where people come from. I would think that if you're a big program and you're looking down, you should be doing that instead of just looking what's right in front of you or what kind of falls in your lap. I think you should be doing it going down a couple different layers, which could beg the question. And maybe this is a great topic to talk about today: is where different people, different coaches fit in the hierarchy of coaches. Because come on, I know everyone says, "Oh, I want to be a national team coach," but what level? Cadet, juniors, seniors. Oh, I want to be an Olympic coach. Maybe, and this is what I think is interesting because I love other sports. You look at, there's great, I mean, phenomenal high school coaches. There's great collegiate level sports coaches, and there's great professional coaches. And very rarely do they switch and have success. For example, American football, one of the most established, detailed money sport in the world. Not many collegiate level coaches who are unbelievable can go to the pros and excel. Like, it's extremely low percentage. And
Why do you think that is?
I think it's a different type of athlete. I think it's, sometimes you're dealing with money and professionalism versus developing men or women. I think at the younger, you're still developing skills. Their bodies are growing. The rah-rah it makes, do it for the school, do it for the Alabama Crimson Tide, do it for Notre Dame. People buy into that. In the pro level, because they changed so much, and the collegiate level is changing now because of this NIL. But I think that has a big thing to do with it, But also, coaches know inherently, I'm going to take this individual, I'm going to develop them, I'm going to coach them, and they're going to move on, and they're okay with that. But in our sport, you got a lot of like, I want to hold on to them because I know best, because I know them the best, and that's not the truth. Just because you know them the best doesn't mean that you know the best.
Does Korea have a system similar to that? Like with their high school teams, their elementary teams, they do Taekwondo throughout their whole like school developments, correct? So it's kind of like that. Yeah.
Well, it depends on the system, right? So Australia, and Bob Gambardello, who we hired as a CEO for a while, he and I went through the MEMOS program, which is a scholarship program, and you get your master's in sport organization development and athlete identification. And his thesis was on this. And so we looked at different ways that they found athletes and coaches and trained them. And then we tried to bring some of that to the United States so that we could also have that kind of success, right? And when you do that, you do get a success. But, it's a different system. China, 5, 6 years old, they go through a program, they look at them, and they pick their athletes, and based on those athletes, they say you be good at this, you be good at that, you be good at this, and that's where you go. That's what you do. That's what you're expected to do. That's what you do. And do I like that one. But and so I think I will add this to the conversation. Only this. So I'm going to offer probably at some point some discussion of solutions, only because I'm a solution kind of person. I don't think it's our obligation to change it. And the last thing I'll say in that is, quite frankly, this: if and we all know this, you try to help somebody, and when you try to help them, it doesn't mean they actually listen to you, nor do they take your help, and nor do they want your help. So I've stopped helping people unless they come to me and ask me for advice. And that includes walking. Like if I'm walking down the street and I see somebody's lost and I can obviously see they're lost, I don't offer them help because they may not want my help. And when I do offer them help, often they're like, I got it. And so I'm like, okay, well, best wishes, hope you get there. But
I still hold the door for people.
Yeah, exactly. No, I still listen. I'm a gentleman. I hold the door. I do all that stuff. But when it comes to the rest of the stuff, God bless you, baby Jesus. Hope you find your way, because unless you look to me and ask me, I'm not going to help you, because in my experience, and this goes with organizations, USA Taekwondo is where it is because it doesn't want or need anybody's help. It thinks it's got it figured out, or it likes where it's headed. And that's the WT, that's the kooky one, that's this. And quite frankly, that's the International Olympic Committee and a bunch of the other guys I've worked with and for. So until they ask me for help, I'm still going to offer it, but I'm just not going to tell them about
it. What's interesting is like I think, and it's probably in a lot of our sports, because I'm very close with certain other countries, kind of formats, whether it's Mexico, Canada, United States, Brazil, some other foreign European countries as well. I think that our sport doesn't do a good job of recognizing and giving people accolades for coaching, being successful at coaching a certain level. So TJ, you asked about Korea. I mean, generally speaking, as the kids get better, they have a different model in Korea nowadays where, they're letting the coaches kind of move up with them, onto the national team level. You're starting to see that. But I think, this country could be a country that says, we value a cadet level coach. They train them hard, they train them often, they work certain skills, they know how to play little games with them and do these little things that are probably important in that 12 to 14-year-old age. And then when you get 15, 16, 17, kids are different, right? They're not as amused by the little games, and vice versa, or same thing when you get to the adult level. But finding those coaches, giving them their props, giving them their recognition, because I think in life, like, everybody wants to be recognized. I don't care even the a gangbanger? Why is he a gangbanger? Why does he go rob somebody? He wants to be significant. He wants to be recognized. He wants to be somebody, even though it's a bad example. There's no different than us. Like when people do well, it's human nature to want to be recognized, to feel some sort of significance. I know in a perfect world, no, I just do this for the goodness of people. Oh my God, look at that picture. Look at that picture. What happened? You're kind of handsome back then.
Dude, you know, I used to be good
Hey,
looking.
hey,
And
TJ,
I just
even
turned 65.
TJ, hey, 65. That's
Old,
pretty
man,
awesome.
old.
But
But
TJ,
now I know you
hey,
guys are putting up your
hold
medals
up.
and your
No, no,
rings.
no, no.
Hold on, hold
TJ,
on. Here it goes. But do you
even
have
men.
one of
No,
these?
no, put the other one back up. No, forget that. Put the other one.
Do you have an
TJ,
action figure? That's all I want to know.
Hey, TJ.
Olympus in the house.
Even men wear satin and purple together. Hey, put that away, man. Come
And I'm
on.
a purple belt.
uh,
And I'm a
That
purple
was kind
belt.
of sexy, man. You were kind
Oh,
of.
you like
he
the
was
other one?
wearing,
All right, I'll put that
he
one.
was wearing, it's like you got a
Oh.
komodo on, his sleeveless
Yeah, let me take
komodo.
a screenshot of that, bro. Hold on. I'm gonna get this one. Dang.
Well,
Yeah.
you forgot my muscle one. You never saw the muscle one?
Listen,
Oh,
let's
fine.
leave this a PG thing because I'm good with that one right there. Because quite honestly, there wasn't a whole lot of muscles, man. You want to see some guns? Come on now.
Oh my gosh. All right, go ahead.
So anyway, I just think like I don't know. It would be something to be. It would be interesting to see if um, an organization could actually not keep people, but like recognize people in their developmental level. Because again, I don't do much in this country right now. But when I look at certain coaches, I can give it up. I can go, wow, that guy's a really good junior level coach. And sometimes it's by virtue of how many people they develop, how many medals they get, how many people they put on the team. I just don't see them having the same success at the senior level. That doesn't mean that they couldn't develop into that, but they haven't. And it's okay. Nothing wrong with that, buddy. Nothing wrong with that, lady. You're amazing cadet coach.
I
Maybe better
think
than
it's
me.
cool. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, for me, I think it's cool that at that level, at that age, that the home coaches are involved. You know what I mean? But I also think
Yeah.
there should be some kind of not. I don't want to say guidance, but like I don't know, just a feel good. Maybe it don't got nothing to do with development or building. I just felt like a different kind of support when I was a junior. Like I had big names with us. I was like you said, I was surrounded by Olympic coaches who had Olympic medals that were coaching the junior at that point. Like that's who I grew up around. That's who gave me my vision and put me in a position to like, okay, I really want to do this, or maybe point me in the right direction. But I had influences all around me. I remember, was it? I remember being at my first my junior Pan Am championships and losing that one, losing the semifinals, I believe it was. It's a controversial call, whatever it may be. And I remember taking my mouthpiece out and dropping it on the floor, and I think it was Miss Lemus actually. Miss Lemus, she's like, hey, shut up. And I didn't do it as a disrespectful thing, but from that moment on, I realized how important it was to be aware of your surroundings, to be aware of the moment, to like not get thrown off track by those little things. So I think all those things, not that those lessons can't be taught by other coaches, it's just it means something different when you're coming from people who have literally been at the highest levels of the game and have affected even like as I met them as a younger stage in my career as opposed to getting through when I started to like finishing. You know
Nico.
what I mean?
But let me ask you, because I'm gonna go devil's advocate because I believe certain coaches are better equipped because of their experiences. So how does a coach? I'm a small coach, and I say, yeah, but how am I going to learn that if I never get my chance at it? You know what I'm saying? So maybe that's what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
saying,
yeah.
TJ. Is like we need some good mentors. Talking to those people, and this goes now to education, Coach Perez. You've been on this for 25 years, but teaching people at different levels and a senior level, maybe you need to act and walk and talk like this, dress like this. Maybe, oh my gosh, look at this guy, bro.
Calm down, boys.
You got some P Diddy oil on that body right there, boy.
I better hold on. Let me take that down. Hold on. The P Diddy comment killed it. All right.
That ain't much better.
Yeah. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like, so think about that. Like, if if coaches are teaching people this is how you act at a senior level, this is how you act at a junior level, this is how you act at a cadet level, it's no different than a head coach having a technical director to go and deal with technical issues with the WT, right? You need to have a buffer. The coach should coach. So when I get in the ring, I don't feel any malice because that referee saw me arguing with him later. Let my technical director go do that on behalf of me. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just certain people's jobs that need to do those things, and everybody can develop and get better and excel. And I think that that's, you know, probably missing in this country on many levels.
So I think
Many levels.
what you guys said is correct. And so here's where I'll dovetail into it, right? And try to offer perspective. With regard to the coaching and how you develop coaches and what coaches, so coaches should start with a general idea on what they want to do. So if you're a coach, and I'm kind of going through this with my son, who's an athlete at the moment, and so I'm preparing him for a life of coaching, because at the end of his athletic career, he's going to be a coach. And I'm working with actually a professional soccer player now that's coaching my son. And I'm telling him the same thing. You're an athlete now. 10 years from now, you're going to be a coach. So build your understanding of the game now. And actually, I have him building content now so that when he stops being an athlete, he doesn't have to become an insurance salesman, right? Or work as a lawyer or whatever. If he loves
Who is this?
sport,
Who are you talking about? Your son or the guy that's coaching your son?
both.
Okay.
So I'm building a legacy for the guys who are coaching my son, saying, hey, have you thought of this? Because I didn't when I was an athlete. And I wish I had, because then I would have been 20 years earlier. And so he heard it and it resonated with him. And so he's now, good thing about doing that is then you start to reinvestigate yourself. And what are my goals? What am I doing? How am I teaching? How am I understanding this, even when you're an athlete? For my son, you know, who's just a junior in high school, you know, we're going through that process, but I'm building an understanding of the game for him and a legacy. So he understands, not only should you understand the game, but you should understand how to teach. So I have him coaching younger kids and getting that experience now. So as a coach, you should have that understanding and say, where do I sit? Am I a woman's coach? Am I a men's coach? Am I a juniors coach? Is that my best role? And Korea does a pretty good job of this. They have very elite coaches. Kim, the best coach in the world, studied under the best coach ever. Ko Min taught Kim Se-yuk. Kim Se-yuk was a high school coach. Juan trained there.
Yeah.
Coach Moreno trained there. And the best players in the world trained there because he was the best coach ever. He then went and only coached Olympic level guys because they recognized in him an understanding of the game that came from Ko Min. And when you look at Ko Min's legacy, this is a guy who had the best coaches in the world under him. And to this day, I still talk to guys that I didn't know were his students, including the guy out here by me. And they were contemporaries of these guys, of Ko Min, contemporaries of Kim Se-yuk. So the development of a coach is no different than the development of an athlete. And what I mean by that is it's got to come first from the coach. What do you want to do? What do you think you want to do? And that can change based on your acumen and your ability or your passion. You don't like kids? Don't coach kids. Coach adults. You like kids? Coach kids, because that's crazy rewarding. Second, the pipeline, which is what you're talking about, Coach. The pipeline has to be developed and empowered by the organization. And I learned that when I was on the board of the Olympic Committee. And that's a flex, right? But you can throw shade on it, but it is what it was. I developed programs for 8 different sports in conjunction with their high performance directors, high performance plans. We reviewed them and implemented them. And if you do it correctly, you create a pipeline that's sustainable and full, not 1 or 2 guys, full. So to bring this back to center, in the United States, the pipeline is empty. And so when the pipeline is empty, you start filling it with bodies as opposed to good bodies. And this is not to say anything about any particular coach, but I have a general rule. If you don't know my name, or you don't know Coach Moreno's name, or you don't know some of the Jimmy Kim's name, you probably, if you don't know our names, you probably don't know Taekwondo.
Yeah, but
hold on a second. If I don't know your name, then you definitely don't know Taekwondo. So it's just personal, and that, now people can hate on that, and I'm going to keep it real for a minute. That's not to say I know all the new guys, but if you don't know your history, you're damned to repeat it. What I can say for us is in our generation, we had some of the worst coaches in the world. The worst. We coached ourselves. We coached each other. The second generation, we had some of the best coaches in the world because they were you guys. We didn't want to be like our predecessors. We wanted good coaches. You had good coaches that sat in your chair. Towards the end of my career, I had 1 or 2. Dr. Capner was one of my coaches when I could have him in my chair. And you had good coaches in your chair. But for the most part, we were on our own. When you guys sat in chairs, you guys got results, and you were developed. You developed yourselves. We developed content, and then we developed a methodology. And that methodology is why TJ's here. TJ was found by us and you and everybody else, and then he by himself developed, and he's a good coach because of you. So yeah, we need a developmental system, and that developmental system doesn't exist currently because no one cares for it to exist. Because as soon as you do have it, then you have a meritocracy. And a meritocracy means the best and the brightest rise to the top and the rest don't. And we're a performance culture. And if you don't rise to the top, that's okay. You can carry a bag. You don't have to be the guy who the bag's being carried for.
Well, I mean, listen, you're not wrong on any of that stuff. And, I sometimes I get a little bit, shy to talk about the old time stuff like that, because I think or not the old times, just the past, because I think we definitely have to learn from the past, understand our history, and move forward. That's what I talk about: culture, understanding people's culture, understanding, what has happened, what has developed, and where we are now. And when you fall back, then that's a big problem. I think that's where we're at right now, because, I mean, listen, at one point I was pretty successful as a coach for the United States. I had many people in the national team. But what I'm more proud of right now, something that you just said, Young, is look at Terrence Jennings, a great coach in the military, coaches privately, his coaching in the Olympics, excelled. James Howe, successful school, successful kids, right? Tim Toko, you don't even know him. His original athlete was Michaela Greenwood, who's a world champion. Russell Benaby, national team members, coach all over. Oily developed Olympic athletes. And it just kind of goes up, Brad Demink, para athletes. And so in our little system with our athletes and coaches mentoring them, we were able to foster that. I mean, again, talk about a flex. I don't know many programs that have been able to spawn many other successful programs or many other successful coaches. I mean, but I just think that that's what we need to do. And I didn't set out to do that originally, but for sure, me and TJ had specific talks when he was winding down his career. Me and James Howe, specific talks about, okay, what's the next thing? Whether it's a school owner and how to develop kids, we still talk about it. TJ went into the military, coaching at a professional level. I mean, and we talk daily about this,
But
right?
you undersell yourself. So I'm gonna put a little bit of something out there for you before, and then TJ will get to you. So first of all, you and I worked together in camps and stuff, right? And when we were talking back then, we talked about stuff. You took the small framework of what we were working on together when we were working for Macho and all those guys in Century. And you created something that no one ever thought to create, which was you privatized Olympic development across the country. And as a result of privatizing it and making it a profit-based system, like a professional club, you went out and found 10 to 12 to 15 of the best schools that you could work with. And then you proved your legacy and your product. So I don't want to undersell the fact that Peak Performance put more people on teams than, the national programs does. And so that's got to be said. And then the rest I don't want to just gloss over that.
All right. No, I guess that was my point originally, going back to that story about the Pan Am Championships, the Junior Pan Am Championships. I don't think I've ever in my career had a bad coach. You know what I mean? I've never had a bad coach. I've been around great coaches since day one. And my Master Streets put me in positions to meet you, to train around you, for you to have identify and see me. And so I've always been in a system where it was building towards something bigger. So I mean, I think that's the part that I miss personally, is like having these kids be around something they aspire to, or something that some people that have, like, I knew you guys were from, my original coach was from Ivory Coast, who came to the U.S. to train at Howard, and he started a program with a vision. And there was a lot of us, and through that whole thing, he kind of put us in positions to be the best. I mean, we went to all sorts of seminars. We showed up to. I've been to Stephen Lopez seminars. Like, fast forward years later to fight his brother, to have to stand in the ring and fight with him. Like, but we were in those positions to be around people who were at the top of the game and all that stuff like that, and great coaches. I think we had great, like you said, we had great coaches from the bottom all the way through the process for me. So I think that's the part that I'm pointing out.
You know why? You know how when you're great, when you actually come on. Patrice Remarque was one of the greatest fighters ever, historic. He was just he's a monster. But then he becomes a coach, and listen, that guy lived in my first house when I first moved. Not lived. He came to my first house in Miami. I didn't even have furniture. Him and Arlene Lemus and two other athletes, and I went to a wedding, and I came back at 2:00 in the morning, tired, hanging out. And he's like, "Juan, you have very interesting books in your office. Did you read them?" Yes. Okay, wait. I'm like, "Sir, I'm going to sleep right now. Can we talk about it later?" Okay. But it's funny because you're absolutely right. He brought you to how many different seminars? He brought you in a learning environment. When you came to me, he came and he watched you. He watched you in my program. He told me things that I didn't even know about you. Like that's how you know you're great. When he said, "You know what? Here's the handoff. Here's the handoff." And we wouldn't have gotten to where we got to with each other without him. And like I can
For sure.
wholeheartedly admit that, give credit, give him a high five, and just respect him. And it's interesting enough, when he became the national team coach, I was the national team coach. I wasn't rehired. He went there. He called me, said, "Juan, I need you to help me." I'm like, and I wasn't happy, but I went along. And by the end of his tenure, I begged him not to quit. I'm like, "Don't quit. You're doing a great job." I mean, it was a tough situation, but it was interesting. Here I am getting one of his athletes. And then later on, I lose my position. He takes it. And yet we're still together. We still talk. That's how you know you're great. When a guy like Coach Remarque, Master Remarque, is willing to expose, learn, develop himself and his athletes. And we don't
Yeah, he
we
made
don't
us
have many people like
afraid.
that.
He made us not afraid of anybody. He put us in everybody's room to hear it from every single person. He was never shy about that type of stuff in development. And if he thought that person had value, he wanted us in front of them. That
Yeah.
was the goal.
That's because Patrice Remarque was a great athlete and to be feared. And he was one of the few guys, along with Jimmy Kim, that I feared. And because I watched him fight, and I watched people leave the national championships when they saw he was in his draw. And then he beat Jay Warwick within an inch of his life on a number of occasions. And, and that's just keeping it real. When myself and Coach Moreno and others started to do the education program and develop the content, we reached out to Patrice Remarque because we understood that. And, one of my favorite stories was, I met him. We're coming back on a plane from 1987 World Championships or a World Cup. And we're talking and I'm like, "Oh man, I always wanted to fight you." And he said, I was
Now?
no,
He
yeah,
said
now,
Right now.
no, exactly.
Yeah, put it on. That's
I'm like,
dope.
now, this is years later, right? Not
I don't need it. I
but
don't
in
need it. I don't
response
need
to
it.
it. And he goes, I always wanted to fight you too. And I could barely understand him to this day. When he calls me with his French Ivory Coast accent, I have to kind of like really tune in. And so then we're talking about fighting, just so you can understand what a true fighter is like. This was not a fighter. This was a murderer. This guy, he's like, "When I come into a ring, I do not think about
Why does he sound like that?
my job is to kill you. I want to kill you."
Missing
And
the accent.
yeah, he was, not his mentality as a fighter is why he
Yeah.
was so successful, and all the people that worked with him were successful, because when he trained you, it wasn't about winning. It was about brutality. I had never seen a man so brutal. And, Coach Moreno knows this story, and I'll end with this last one because it's a funny one. One of the other best fighters I ever knew in that division for the United States was James Villasana. Villasana was an amazing athlete. So he had a fight. He looks at his draw. This is 1991, and he's got to fight Patrice Remarque. He goes, "Captain, who is this guy, Patrice Remarque?" So I go, "Oh no, yeah, he's old, man. He used to be really good, but are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, no, you can beat him." So he goes in, fights Patrice, and wins by
But they have a war.
they have a war. The next
War.
day, Villasana can't walk. He's got compression fractures. They're afraid he's going to have his legs amputated. I mean, it was truth, right? So he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, Captain, I think he was a little better than you thought," right? So then
No, but first of all, he has a country accent, so he's a Texas. He's like, that guy was pretty good.
Yeah.
He was not bad. Y'all told me he wasn't too good. And we're like, I mean,
And we tell them the truth at the end of that, right? But but that's a great example of two things. One, Patrice is a fierce warrior. Number two, if you believe something is possible, which Viasana did, it becomes possible. Viasana, listen, just to close the door on Viasana, this is a guy who didn't understand that the stuff that you were taught or you could do, you shouldn't do. So he would go and do stuff that other people would be like, "You want me to do what?" No. He would just go in and do it. Like the first time I saw him.
I got a Patrice story. Patrice, so this is 2000-ish, 2002, 2003. He comes to Miami. I'm training a bunch of guys, and he wants to train. He wants to come to practice. So, everybody's got sweatpants on, shirts, baseball hat. He goes in the locker room. He comes out in a full dobok. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so earlier we had trained, and like we did, like in one gym, we did some line drills, and I step spar with them up and down, making sure, just to make sure it was light, because I'm like, I don't know what he's going to do to me. And so fast forward to 2 days later, we're actually at this, Susei Cho, the owner of Macho, the guy who made Macho. This guy's Susei Cho. We're at his dojo, and we're doing drills. He comes out with his dobok on, and one of my guys, who's not bad, he's a welterweight. He's like, "Who's that guy?" I'm like, he's our coach from a long time ago. He's like, "Bro, he's not bad." I'm like, "Yeah, he's okay." So then all of a sudden I said, "Okay, light sparring," and he's like, "Sparring?" Yes. He goes in. Everybody has shin guards, forearm guards. That's it. He comes out, headgear, chest guard. He has everything. I'm like, oh shit. So my guy, Patrice comes in. My guy goes, Potter chuggies him underneath. Patrice doesn't flip. He comes out. My guy, whack, kicks him in the back. That was the last two kicks that my boy threw. He got axe kicked on the floor. He got back kicked through the wall. He's like, dude, guy's pretty strong. I'm like, bro, you just messed with the wrong SOB right there, man. But it was just funny because this was 2000s. This is a decade later. And he was just like, anyway, he's a great guy. Great guy.
Great fighter. Well, we were supposed to catch up on solutions. I know I'm not sure we're going to get to that today, but that's okay, because that'll be next week's podcast about what would you. And we'll think about it for the next week, but we're going to continue on this for a few minutes. But for next week, I think we should think about, if you were given all the money in the world or the resources, you won the lottery tomorrow, and where Juan goes to get his cafecito, if he went and bought the loteria, he came in and won, what would he do besides, take care of me and get me a nice place?
I know what I would do.
Portugal.
I know what I would. First of all, what I would do in that situation, I would go right to the airport and fly to one city and smack the shit out of somebody. And then I got one more place that I go to too. Then I'll figure out something else. That's why I win everything.
The list
we're talking about Taekwondo?
the list of people that need smacking is long and longer. When we talk about Taekwondo, we'll talk about. I want to think about it because I think it's an important topic. And what would you do if you had resources, you had everything in the world, and you were gonna prove to people what is possible, right? Because the idea that we don't have the athletes, we don't have this, we don't have that, that's not true. We have the intellectual property, we have everything that we need to make it successful. We've empowered through acquiescence and pandering a certain group to run organizations. And this is across the world, not just here. And that's in sport and in martial arts. And as a result of it, they do what they do to keep themselves in power as opposed to produce medals. Now, if the Olympic Committee had a set of cojones, they would do what they used to do back in the day. And if you didn't produce medals, you were asked to move on. The average tenure, just so you understand, for an executive director in any sport, and I know, Juan, you were on the board as well as like me. And TJ, did you serve as an athlete rep to the board? So you know the average tenure of a the average tenure of a CEO.
Making up meetings during training time, making me bad.
The average tenure of a CEO,
and then reprimanding you when you didn't come.
Oh my gosh!
I had to train.
The average tenure of a CEO in the Olympic movement is less than 2 years. That's the average tenure. So you don't perform, you move on. You do perform, you move to a bigger and better sport. So we have people circling the drain and they keep coming back to
There's no sport better than Taekwondo.
there's no sport better than Taekwondo. Then the question becomes, why isn't it getting results? So, that's
Oh,
a
no.
really, really a good question.
But you made a good point about people circling back, and it's funny because I don't have a problem if people circle back if they actually truly wanted to be there, if they truly had something to give, not like gained it along the way. Does that make sense? Does that you understand that, TJ? Like, for
No.
example, I've been gone, and all of a sudden you just bring one back just because. And then, of course, give me a year into it. Now I learn everybody. I kind of figure it out. Like now, if one was over here doing something really good, we pulled them back because we wanted that. But I don't think that's the case in the USA Taekwondo. That's one. Two, hot off the press. I don't know if it's true. I'm going to say it. I just heard today that the current CEO is leaving December 30th. That's what I just heard. Now, I also heard that in
December
September.
30th of this year.
Yeah.
So
That's what I heard.
like I heard that rumor, and then I'm not going
It's been quiet.
to mention any names, but I got a very whenever you get something personal, somebody gets ass burnt, as I called it. I got a personal text threatening me from an individual in the organization saying what was said was not true. Where did I hear it, and who said it, and don't believe everything you said. So that individual was supposed to be gone already. So that guy should have been gone already, according to whatever. The organization that's funding Taekwondo in that town is under scrutiny because it misused or doesn't have whatever, violated some rules domestically inside its own state or whatever. So I can say this. Hopefully, just like any other professional team, when there are guys don't get in professional football that don't get to finish a game. They get fired at the halftime. During the halftime here, bad news, good news. The coach of the whatever is now gone. The assistant comes on, or they don't finish at the end of that game. They don't even go to the press conference because they're gone. And in soccer, it happens. In every other professional sport, when you don't perform, you don't get to stay. And in Taekwondo, for whatever reason, U.S. Taekwondo, when it flushed its toilet of the corrupt leadership, that's now going to be the leadership of the of another organization. So I laugh about that. We flushed our toilet, and they found a soft landing, no pun intended, somewhere else. We replaced it with an equally self-interested, nepotistic organization that hires from outside the states. We couldn't. And just so you understand, in U.S. government, you can't get outside contracts from outside vendors that are not domestically sourced before you exhaust all possibilities in the United States for United States vendors. So the idea that in the United States, with 330 million people and X amount of coaches that we used to teach when we went around and certified, so I'm going to guess 2,000 or 3,000 coaches, we can't find a coach to coach the U.S. program, but we can find two ne'er-do-wells with no results to coach the program that give the middle finger to the United States on Facebook and then blame it on their dads. This is the best we can do. I don't believe that to be the case. The only time that survives is when you have a board that's asleep at the wheel, which this one is. You have a CEO who's self-interested and not from the United States. And you have a COO that was a former athlete that didn't perform and is still trying to relive his glory days or make up for the fact that he got knocked out unconscious at the Olympic Games. Of course, he's going to continue to take the cheap tickets to Korea to go eat food and talk to Cho. So that's you want to keep it real? That's me speaking. And why do I speak? Because I'm Olympus, and I got an Olympic gold medal and the World Cup gold medal, and I'm a ninth dan. So I'm sure they'll come and try to take one of those. Some of them they can take, and some they can throw shade on. You want one last thing, and I'm going to keep it real, and you guys can't comment and won't. They had a 50th anniversary for USA Taekwondo. They apparently forgot.
Oh man.
They forgot my telephone number. They forgot my record, and they forgot who I was and what we did for the organization. There wasn't a single athlete in the room that was part of the reason that there are any athletes in the room that was at the event.
I think maybe
Nah,
Sharon
I
Jewell.
didn't get one. I didn't get an invite.
Yeah.
No, hold on. In
You gotta go
fairness,
back that far. I didn't get an
Sharon,
invite. I didn't get an invite.
Sharon Jewell didn't leave the room. She's been there since 1988, so she hasn't left the room.
Listen,
so I love
that's a good
Sharon,
point,
but
I got
Actually,
I got a lifetime membership and didn't get an invite. What do you want from
Do
me?
you got
I got a
lifetime
lifetime membership too.
I got a lifetime
I should-
membership.
I'm gonna put that up on. I'm gonna put
My
that up on
membership
blog.
ends in like year 3000 or something. They're probably gonna take it away from me now or something. But yeah, it's like
No, but that's a
lifetime
good
membership.
question. Like on that, I mean, again,
Lifetime
I would
membership.
think that 50th anniversary. I don't know how many people came or didn't come. I don't really know, but that should have been. I'm sure they announced it. Come if you want, but that should have been to all the Olympic level athletes, to all the world medalists. That should have just been a blast because they have everybody's
Come if you
emails.
want. You mean so? What you're saying? I want to understand this. The number of Olympic men who have competed at the Olympic Games. How many total?
7 and then 4, so that's 11. But there's some double crossover, so 11, and then there's 12, 13, 14,
Less
15,
than
16,
less than 20.
17. Yeah, there's less than 20, and some of them are doubles.
And it doubles, right? And I know what the number. I can't remember the number, but up until now, I can't. I remember last year or whatever. So I can tell you it's less than 20. You're telling me that for the 50th anniversary, the most important thing that's happened to Taekwondo was its inclusion in the Olympic Games and the number of Olympic medalists at the Games, 3 of whom were here on this podcast. They forgot our emails. They didn't. There wasn't a phone call that was made. I get phone calls. I get phone calls for Hall of Fames and stuff like that. I get personal phone calls getting inviting to stuff. My son's a soccer player. He gets notes from coaches, phone calls asking him to come try out to come be part of their university. And he's
that's because that's because they want him. I get it. They don't want us, but you would just think again. What? To everybody, to all the Olympic level athletes, they should have had some kind of like personal invite.
Look at that face. How could they not want Olympus and the 5 Olympic rings and that medal in the back? That I can't. That might be. Is that a medal? It's all in the back. You make them bring the medal in. I think next week we should wear our medal.
I'll wear it next week for you.
Yeah, and then I just want to know. We should try this one time. We should call the national office and say, "Hi, Herb Perez on the phone." And if they go Herb who or Juan who or TJ who, then who dat? But anyway, we wax poetic. Listen, we let's have some closing comments because I know you guys we want to keep these listenable, and we don't want to just be grousing and complaining about whatever. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not complaining about me because if I never go to another tournament and watch another bad Taekwondo match, I'll be okay.
Easy there.
I'll be okay with that. I don't go to events for food. I go to watch good events. I got invited to go to Paris. I didn't.
Can I give a question for maybe a minute each for you guys? For real. What do you guys think about this this CEO shooting guy? The guy that got caught. Come on, man.
I didn't even know. First of all, I started listening. I didn't even know what a ghost gun was. They kept referring to this ghost gun. I didn't even know that.
It wasn't there. It's there. It wasn't there. No.
No. But like, apparently it's like something you put together like out of a kit. Like so it has no serial numbers. But I was so confused for the first like 3 minutes. I'm like, so this guy has like a Ghostbuster gun? Like he's just out here just zapping ghosts. I'm like, what's happening? You know what I mean? Nah, but I don't know. That's a crazy one. That's too CSI for me, man. I got nothing.
Well, I think listen, those are rich people problems. This kid was a rich kid who was disenfranchised and 24, and unfortunately for him, went to 2 Ivy League schools and got 2 Ivy League degrees. And even with all his Ivy League-ness, couldn't figure out that life was better. He didn't understand the value of whatever. There are a lot of people that I don't like, and by the way, there are a lot of people that don't like me. I'd like to believe that I can walk down the street
come on.
without. I want to believe that. I'm sure there might be a guy from Great Britain. I want to believe that, or his dad. I want to believe that I can walk down the street without getting shot. And this guy, he watched some Jason Bourne movies, man. If you watch the videotape of him, and then he's a cheeky bastard, right? Because he took his mask off. But at the point where you get on a Greyhound bus and your next stop is McDonald's.
No, but that's what's weird to me is like this guy was smart enough to. First of all, man, it's so horrible for that man, that 50-year-old man. We're older than and his family. I think that's getting lost.
Regardless of what you feel about the healthcare industry and all that.
Yeah, but no, like there was no video of him. I mean, the guy was smart enough to avoid all that in New York City, where there's got to be a billion. And then the next thing you know, he gets picked up in Pennsylvania with a backpack, with the gun, with the ID, with the
Fake
manifesto.
IDs, multiple fake IDs.
But it's crazy because if he's smart enough to pull that thing off, even I'm not a very good criminal, but I would know to throw the gun away or to like something's weird there, man.
He thought he was going to need. He thought he was going to need it again. So here's, if you ever watch Bad Boys or whatever, the jail things, the one thing you learn is the criminals get caught because the dumb ones definitely get caught. There's no doubt that this guy was not a great criminal, and he got caught because he's not that smart. Because if he were that smart, he would have found he was smart enough to get away from.
Anyway, sorry about that. Sorry about that topic.
No, it's all good. But at the end of the day, it's an unfortunate commentary on society, youth in society, youth who are privileged in society, and it's a commentary on how you raise your kids. And if you raise your kids in this way, this is what's going to end up happening, because they're going to look at it'll be interesting as the thing develops. And unfortunately, we're a spectator. We like to watch car crashes. They fund themselves on. People love to see the accident, right? And so there's going to be all this speculation. There'll be a movie of the week about it. There'll be another film like there was the Melendez film. All of this is going to be talked about. And unfortunately, I think what you're going to come up with, this was a kid who had challenges and problems, obviously was smart enough to get through a lot of school and do well. He was valedictorian. It wasn't valedictorian. He wasn't a regular kid.
No, he's smart.
I think he's gonna plead not guilty though, right?
He did.
Yeah, he's pleaded not guilty.
Everybody starts at not guilty. He's gonna be in a small prison next to Diddy with the baby oil. But the the question really does become, and this is something. There's a podcast guy I like to listen to. His name is Scott Galloway, and he talks about men raising men. This is a young man who was not raised by a man. This was a young man that wasn't raised to have a role model. We were all raised with role models. We had fathers in our lives, or we had seniors in our lives, or we had people we respected in our lives, that when we did something, we knew it was a reflection upon them. The only thing that kept me out of trouble was I didn't have a dad in my life. My dad, we left early. He was abusive. And I had seniors. I had Taekwondo seniors, my instructors. I didn't want to disappoint them. I had teammates I didn't want to disappoint. And now that I'm married and I have kids, I have a family I don't want to disappoint. I don't want to ever look at my son and think about the implications of what I do and the ramifications to him. So when you're not raised to be a man, you're not raised to be a gentleman, you're not raised to understand consequences, this is the outcome.
I mean, I don't know about that kid. I heard his family's wealthy. I don't know if he was raised to be a man or not, and he just made a bad decision, or he went cuckoo, or he just whatever. Obviously, this was a horrible decision, and it's a horrible tragedy for the gentleman that lost his life and his family that won't never have their father or their husband back. But it is a strange situation. It's too bad that we have to talk about these kind of things like in America. Anyway,
we didn't have to talk about it. You brought it up.
I know.
But
I'm curious about it, man.
I didn't listen. I'm going to say this though. I just want to make sure so I can get ready. I got to start training a little bit. Then I hurt my shoulder, but I think it's going to get better. You talked about when you win the lottery, you're going to get on a plane to go to a particular city and slap somebody. That wouldn't be San Francisco. I'm hoping.
No, I'll shake your hand when I see you. I'm not gonna slap you, man. You're good.
He's claiming injuries like he's pulling out of that Jake Paul fight. Now your shoulder hurts.
It's my left shoulder. My right hand is still ready, but my kick is gonna hurt. You grab it, I'll start crying like a little baby. All right, gentlemen. This has been the Warehouse 15 again, keeping it real. It was probably a little more real than most people would like, but that's okay too. I want to say thank you. Any last words, Coach Moreno?
No, great talking to everybody. Can't wait to see everybody next week. Bigger and better.
And then Coach Jennings.
All good. I'll catch you guys next week.
All right. Like we said, we are out.